Imagine a city older than Rome, older than Athens, older than the first books of the Bible, standing under a copper-colored dawn beside a slow river, its streets already measured, its drains already covered, its houses already fitted with private wells and bathrooms, while much of the world still slept in villages of mud and smoke. In that city, a boy named Kavan woke before sunrise to the sound of water. Not the wild water of flood or storm, but the careful water of a planned city. Water drawn from a brick-lined well, water splashed onto a bathing floor, water running through a sloped channel into a covered drain beneath the street. He was 13 years old, the son of a brick maker, and he lived in a city that people thousands of years later would call Mohenjo-daro, the Mound of the Dead. Though to him it was not dead at all. It was alive in every baked brick, every straight lane, every courtyard, every marketplace, every seal pressed into clay, every cart while creaking over the hard-packed road. Kavan did not know that one day people from countries he could never imagine, from places across oceans where cities like New York, Chicago, Boston, and Los Angeles would rise, would stare at the ruins of his home and ask how a people so ancient could have built with such order, cleanliness, and restraint. To Kavan, the city was simply the way the world ought to be. His father, Ryan, believed a city began not with walls, kings, or temples, but with bricks. A crooked brick becomes a crooked wall, he often said. And a crooked wall becomes a crooked street, and a crooked street becomes a sick city. That morning, as the first light touched the flat roofs, Kavan followed him to the kiln fields outside the dense neighborhoods. The bricks lay in rows like sleeping cattle, sun-dried first, then fired until they hardened into the deep reddish-brown strength that made the Indus cities endure. Ryan lifted one brick and placed it in Kavan's hands. "Feel the rule," he said. Kavan knew what he meant before he said it. The brick was not random. Its height, width, and length followed a ratio that the city's builders trusted again and again, 1 to 2 to 4. A brick could be turned, stacked, bonded, and fitted with thousands of others because its proportions belonged to a shared language. In America far in the future, builders would talk of standardized materials, zoning, grids, utilities, and infrastructure, but Kavan City already understood that civilization depended on agreements no one had to shout about. A brick was a promise. A drain was a promise. A street line was a promise. A wait in the marketplace was a promise. The miracle of the city was that so many people kept those promises without leaving behind statues of kings to boast about it. From the kiln fields, father and son walked back through a gate and entered one of the main streets. The street ran straight, not because a god had dragged a finger through dust, but because surveyors had measured it. Smaller lanes met it at near right angles. Houses opened mostly onto side streets rather than the busiest roads, giving families privacy and reducing the chaos of traffic. Carts pulled by humped cattle moved slowly, carrying grain, timber, shell, copper tools, pottery, beads, and bundles of cotton cloth. Kavan stepped aside for a cart whose wheels left shallow grooves in the earth. A woman on a rooftop shook out a woven mat. A potter's apprentice carried bowls stacked so high that his chin rested on the rim of the top one. Somewhere nearby, a bronze worker hammered metal with a rhythm like a bird calling across the morning. What amazed strangers most, though no stranger from the future could yet walk those streets, was not the noise or the trade, but the cleanliness. Kavan passed houses with bathing platforms made of carefully laid bricks, sloped so water would run away. Many homes had drains that carried wastewater into covered street drains. Some drains were large enough for a worker to climb into for cleaning. Inspection holes allowed maintenance. The city did not pretend waste vanished. It planned where waste should go. Kavan had never seen a palace rising above the houses, never seen a giant royal tomb, never watched slaves drag stones for a ruler's immortality. His city's greatness was quieter. It was underfoot. It was the covered drain along the street, the soak jar beside a wall, the well in a courtyard, the public order that made private life possible. His mother, Omri, was already at work when Kavan returned. She sat in the courtyard, rolling cotton thread between her fingers. Cotton was one of the gifts of their world. The fields beyond the settlements produced wheat, barley, peas, sesame, dates, and cotton, and the rivers gave both danger and abundance. Omri traded cloth with merchants who traveled far beyond the city. Sometimes they brought stones from distant mountains, shells from the sea, metals from lands Kavan knew only through stories, and blue stones that seemed to hold the evening sky inside them. His older sister, Tila, polished carnelian beads until they glowed like captured fire. Bead making was patient work. Stones were heated, shaped, drilled with astonishing precision, and strung into ornaments that might travel hundreds or even thousands of miles. Kavan had once asked a merchant whether their beads truly reached lands beyond the Western Sea. The man had laughed and told him of cities in Mesopotamia where scribes pressed wedge marks into clay and where people spoke of a land called Meluha, rich with timber, ivory, beads, and strange black seals. Kavan did not know if Meluha meant his homeland exactly, but he liked to imagine one of his sister's beads resting on the wrist of a woman in a faraway city under a different moon. The marketplace filled as the sun rose. Kavan loved the weights most of all. Traders placed goods on pans and balanced them against cubical stones, polished and standardized. The smallest weights could measure fine goods. Larger ones handled grain and metal. They followed a system so consistent that merchants from distant towns could trust a transaction even when they did not trust each other. There, among baskets of grain and jars of oil, Kavan saw the secret skeleton of the Indus world. Not armies marching, not kings commanding, but measurement. The same brick proportions appeared across great distances. Similar seals, weights, pottery forms, ornaments, and planning habits linked cities and towns from Harappa in the north to Mohenjo-daro in Sindh, from Dhalavira in the drylands of Kutch to Lathal near the coast, from large urban centers to smaller settlements scattered across a vast region. It was not one city, but a civilization of cities, towns, farmers, artisans, traders, and planners tied together by shared standards. Near the marketplace stood a seal carver named Suri, whose hands were steadier than still water. He carved tiny animals into soft stone, then fired or treated the seals until they hardened. Bulls with powerful shoulders, elephants, rhinoceroses, tigers, goats, and mysterious composite creatures appeared beneath his tools. Above many animals he carved short rows of signs. Kavan could copy a few, but he could not read them fully, and neither can anyone in the modern world with certainty. That is one of the great silences of the Indus civilization. These people left thousands of inscriptions, yet no long bilingual text has been found to unlock the script. Their signs remain undeciphered, like doors without keys. Kavan, however, saw no mystery. A seal marked identity, ownership, trade, perhaps office, perhaps clan, perhaps belief. When pressed into wet clay, it made absence present. The owner did not need to stand beside the jar or bundle, because the mark spoke for him. That afternoon, Kavan carried a basket of bricks toward the raised western mound, the high sector of the city that later archaeologists would call the citadel. It was not necessarily a fortress in the way modern people imagine, but it stood elevated, built on massive mud brick platforms, protected from floods and set apart for important structures. The climb always made Kavan feel as if he were walking from ordinary time into the city's memory. From there he could see the lower town spread in blocks and lanes, rooftops flat under the sun, smoke rising from cooking fires, wells like dark eyes in courtyards, and beyond them the river plain, shining and treacherous. On the mound lay the great bathing tank, lined with fine baked bricks and sealed with bitumen in places to hold water. The tank was not large by the standards of a modern swimming pool, but it had a gravity that silenced people. Steps descended into it. Rooms surrounded it. Water could be brought in and drained away. Kavan did not know what ceremonies took place there, and modern scholars still debate its meaning. Was it for ritual purification, civic gathering, elite ceremony, or something else? What mattered to Kavan was the feeling it gave him, that water could cleanse more than dust, that a city was not only streets and drains but shared acts, shared spaces, shared ideas of order. One evening, a visitor arrived from Dhalavira, a city far to the south and west, where water was more precious than copper. His name was Vesha, and he carried himself like a man who had measured thirst. He stayed in Kavan's house because he knew Ryan through the brick trade. Over dinner, he described Dhalavira's reservoirs, dams, channels, and stone architecture. "Your city lives with too much water," Vesha said. "Mine survives by catching every drop before the earth steals it." Kavan listened wide-eyed as Vesha spoke of a settlement divided into parts, with massive walls, gateways, and water storage systems carved into a harsh landscape. In Mohenjo-daro, drains carried water away. In Dalavira, planners fought to keep it. Same civilization, different problem, different solution. That night, Kavan understood something that would have impressed any modern urban planner. Good planning was not one design copied blindly. It was intelligence shaped by geography. Not long after Vesha's visit, the river began to rise. Flood season always came with rumors before water. A boatman saw the upstream current thickening. Farmers noticed dampness in fields that should still have held firm. A child found fish in a ditch far from the riverbank. The elders met. Workers checked embankments. Storehouses were inspected. Drains were cleared, because a blocked drain in flood season could turn a lane into a fever pit. Kavan went with his father to reinforce a platform wall. He carried bricks until his shoulders burned. The city's raised areas existed for reasons written by earlier disasters. Mohenjo-daro had been built, damaged, rebuilt, lifted, repaired, and altered over generations. Floods were not surprises. They were recurring negotiations with the river. For 3 days, the sky stayed heavy. Then the river came, not like an army, but like a patient animal pushing its body into every low place. The outer fields drowned first. The road to the kiln became a ribbon of mud. Families moved grain jars to higher rooms. Goats were led onto platforms. At night, Kavan heard water licking at the edges of streets. He imagined the drains beneath the city carrying not bathwater now, but the anger of the plain. In a less organized town, panic might have broken everything. In Mohenjo-daro, people were afraid, but fear moved along channels already prepared for it. Men cleared debris from drain openings. Women sealed storage jars. Children carried small goods. The city did not defeat the flood. No city ever truly defeats nature. It endured by having expected trouble before trouble arrived. On the 4th morning, part of a lane wall collapsed near Suri's workshop. Kavan and several others rushed there. Mud sucked at their ankles. The seal carver's shelves had fallen, and dozens of unfinished seals lay in dirty water. Suri stood frozen, staring at a small square seal carved with a unicorn-like animal, its long body elegant, its single horn rising like a question. Kavan picked it up, wiped it with his tunic, and handed it to him. Suri held it as if it were a rescued child. "A city is also memory," he said quietly. "If the water takes all marks, who will know we were here?" Kavan did not answer because he was 13 and because the truth was too large. The flood would pass. Walls would be repaired. Bricks would be replaced. Drains would be cleared. But someday, not in one dramatic night, not by a single invasion or curse, the great urban life of the Indus would fade. Rivers would shift. Trade routes would change. Climate pressures would grow. Old systems would weaken. People would move eastward, southward, into villages and new landscapes. The script would fall silent. The seals would stop speaking. The cities would become mounds. Dust would cover the drains. The great bath would sleep under earth. The straight streets would vanish beneath centuries of wind, rain, and forgetting. But that day had not yet come. When the floodwater withdrew, Mohenjo-daro smelled of wet clay, smoke, and survival. Repairs began immediately. Ryan showed Kavan how to remove weakened bricks without disturbing the stronger courses. Workers opened sections of covered drains and scraped out silt. The city's maintenance was as important as its design. A drain built once and never cleaned was only a future disaster. A wall repaired badly was a delayed collapse. Kavan began to see urban planning not as lines drawn at the beginning, but as a living discipline, repeated every day by people who cared enough to keep the system working. Weeks later, a merchant caravan prepared to leave for the coast. Kavan begged to go, and to his surprise, his father allowed it, partly because Vesha was traveling with them, and partly because Ryan believed a builder should see other cities before thinking he understood his own. They moved through plains and settlements, passing farmers, herders, potters, and traders. At smaller towns, Kavan noticed familiar things. Brick proportions, drains, wells, weights, pottery styles, seals. Not everything was identical, but the resemblance was unmistakable. It was like hearing the same song played on different instruments. The Indus civilization did not need a single giant monument to prove its unity. Its unity lived in repeated practical choices. At last they reached Lothal near the coast, where air tasted of salt and trade. There, Kavan saw a large brick basin that local people used in connection with water and boats, later famous as a possible dockyard, though modern scholars debate its exact function. Whether dock, reservoir, or tidal basin, it showed the same obsession with control. Edges measured, bricks laid, water directed. Merchants spoke of tides, channels, ships, shells, fish, and distant lands. Kavan watched workers load goods and imagined them moving beyond the horizon toward cities he would never see. He realized that streets did not end at city gates. A planned street connected to a road to a river to the sea to foreign markets, and those markets back to the hands of his sister polishing a bead in a courtyard. Years passed, and Kavan became a planner of drains. He did not become a king, because his world did not seem to build itself around kings in the way Egypt built pyramids or Mesopotamia raised royal inscriptions. He did not become a warrior whose name was carved into stone, because the Indus cities left little evidence of glorified warfare compared with many ancient civilizations. He became something quieter and perhaps more important. A man who understood slope. A drain needed fall, but not too much. Water must move, but bricks must hold. A street must be wide enough for carts, but houses must remain private. A well must be accessible, but wastewater must not poison clean water. Kavan learned to read a neighborhood by smell, dampness, traffic, and brick wear. He could tell where a lane would flood before the clouds gathered. He could tell which householder had illegally narrowed a passage with a new wall. He could tell when a soak pit needed emptying. In another age, he might have been called a civil engineer. In his own, he was simply useful. One day, a foreign trader from the West came through the market with a translator. He had a beard curled with oil and wore a garment unlike those of the industry. He admired the beads, weights, and seals, but what astonished him most was a covered drain. He asked why so much labor was spent hiding dirty water. Kavan, now a grown man, looked at him in surprise. Because dirty water does not stop being dirty when you refuse to see it, he said. The translator laughed, but the foreigner did not. He crouched, lifted the inspection cover, and stared into the brick channel below. Perhaps he had seen palaces grander than any building in Mohenjo-daro. Perhaps he had seen temples whose walls shouted the names of gods and kings. But here was a civilization whose genius lay in something almost invisible. A public system that protected daily life. Kavan married a woman named Lali, whose family made painted pottery. Their house stood on a narrow lane off a larger street. It had rooms around a courtyard, a stairway to the roof, a bathing floor, and access to a well shared with neighboring households. Their children learned to walk on bricks worn smooth by generations. At night, the family slept on the roof when the heat was heavy, looking up at stars. Lali told stories of animals carved on seals. The strong bull, the patient elephant, the hidden tiger, the strange one-horned creature no one had ever seen in the fields but everyone recognized in art. Kavan told stories of cities. Harappa with its mounds and workshops, Dhalavira with its reservoirs, Lothal with its water basin and trade. Small settlements where the same weights balanced goods under different skies. His youngest daughter, Mira, asked the question that stayed with him forever. Who owns the city? Kavan almost answered, the elders, because elders met and decided many things. He almost answered, the merchants, because trade brought wealth. He almost answered, the builders, because without them walls would fall. But none of those answers felt true. The city was not owned like a jar or a goat. It was inherited, used, repaired, and passed on. The city owns our promises, he finally said. Mira frowned. What does that mean? It means your mother trusts the potter to make a jar that will not crack. The potter trusts the weight in the market. The merchant trusts the seal on a bundle. The washer trusts the drain to carry water away. The farmer trusts the street to bring grain in. The child trusts the well. The old trust the young to repair what breaks. When those promises hold, there is a city. When they fail, there are only houses standing near each other. Mira did not fully understand, but she remembered. As Kavan aged, changes came. Some traders arrived less often. Certain goods became rarer. Stories from distant places grew uncertain. Floods changed neighborhoods. Some families moved away and did not return. The city still lived, but its pulse altered. The great systems remained, yet maintenance became harder when fewer hands appeared for common work. Kavan saw small signs first. A drain left uncleared too long, a wall repaired with poor brick, a lane encroached upon, a well neglected. Civilizations rarely end like a clay pot dropped on stone. More often, they fray like rope, fiber by fiber, until what once held weight can no longer bear it. Still, even in decline, Mohenjo-daro was magnificent. On a winter morning near the end of his life, Kavan climbed the raised mound and stood near the great bath. The tank was empty for cleaning, its brick floor exposed. Sunlight struck the steps. He placed his hand on the wall and felt the cold geometry of the bricks. He thought of his father's lesson, 1 to 2 to 4. He thought of floods, markets, seals, beads, wells, streets, and drains. He thought of the foreign trader staring into the covered channel. He thought of Mira asking who owned the city. He thought of Suri's fear that the water might take all marks. The water did take many things. Time took more, but not everything vanished. Thousands of years later, workers digging into ancient mounds uncovered streets laid out with startling regularity. Archaeologists found brick drains running beside houses, wells built with wedge-shaped bricks, bathing platforms, standardized weights, seals carved with animals and undeciphered signs, bead workshops, pottery, tools, toys, carts, and evidence of a civilization vast and sophisticated. They found no obvious royal palace dominating the skyline, no giant statue declaring one ruler lord of all, no readable inscription explaining the government, no translated hymn revealing the full religion. The silence made the civilization more mysterious, not less impressive. Here was an ancient urban world that seemed to have invested its genius less in royal propaganda than in civic order. For a modern American audience raised among skylines, suburbs, highways, zoning boards, storm drains, water mains, and debates over public infrastructure, the Indus cities feel strangely familiar and strangely humbling. Mohenjo-daro was not modern in the technological sense. It had no steel beams, no electricity, no concrete highways, no digital maps, no satellites, no skyscrapers. Yet it understood something many modern cities still struggle to remember. The health of urban life depends on systems people barely notice when they work. Clean water, drainage, standardized construction, access routes, waste management, storage, trade regulation, neighborhood organization, and resilience against environmental risk are not glamorous, but they are civilization. The astonishing thing about the Indus Valley Civilization is not merely that it was old. Many things are old. The astonishing thing is that it was intelligently urban at such an early date, around the 3rd millennium BCE, contemporary with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, yet different in spirit. Its cities were not chaotic piles of huts around a ruler's monument. They were planned, maintained, and connected across a huge region. Their builders respected measurement. Their households valued bathing and water control. Their artisans produced goods of extraordinary skill. Their traders linked river plains to mountains, deserts, coasts, and foreign lands. Their script remains unread, but their bricks still speak. And if Kavan could stand today in an American city after rain, watching water rush along a curb toward a storm drain, he might not be amazed by the cars, glass towers, or electric lights as much as by the familiar principle beneath them. He might point to the drain and say, "There, that is where the city tells the truth about itself." Because a city can pretend to be grand with monuments, but it proves its wisdom in what it does with water, waste, streets, homes, and trust. Long before Manhattan's grid, long before Roman aqueducts became famous, Long before modern engineers drew blueprints under fluorescent lights, the people of the Indus were building cities where daily life depended on invisible order. Their story is not a fantasy of lost super technology. It is more powerful than that. It is the real story of human beings who looked at mud, flood, heat, trade, privacy, cleanliness, and community, and answered with bricks so well measured that after 4,000 years, we can still read the shape of their minds in the ground. Mira grew up in the shadow of her father's answer, though she did not know it at first. As a child, she thought a city was made of walls, roofs, wells, courtyards, cattle carts, kilns, and market noise. As a young woman, she began to understand that her father had been speaking of something deeper than brick. A city was a kind of agreement between strangers. The woman who baked bread before dawn depended on the man who cleaned the street drain. The bead maker depended on the caravan leader. The farmer depended on the potter's storage jar. The potter depended on the woodcutter on the boatman on the river, and everyone, whether they admitted it or not, depended on planners who thought ahead. Mira did not become a seal carver like Suri or a brick maker like her grandfather. She became a keeper of measurements. Her work began in the market, where she watched the stone weights with a seriousness that made older traders smile. At first, they called her Little Cube because she carried small cubical weights in a cloth pouch at her waist. Later, they stopped smiling because she could notice a false balance faster than most men could count grain. She knew the touch of chert weights, the slight difference between a fair stone and one shaved at the edge, the way a dishonest merchant placed his thumb near the pan while pretending to scratch his wrist. She was not cruel when she caught them. She simply looked at the weight, looked at the trader, and waited. In Mohenjo-daro, shame could be more powerful than punishment. One hot afternoon, a man from a river village arrived with jars of sesame oil. He was tired, sunburned, and nervous among the city people. A merchant tried to buy his oil using a set of weights that looked correct but were not. Mira saw the exchange from across the market. She walked over, placed her own standard weight beside the merchant's, and watched the balance betray him. The village man stared in confusion. The merchant's face hardened. "It is a small difference," he said. Mira answered, "A small difference repeated all day becomes a stolen field." People nearby grew quiet. The merchant took back his false weight and replaced it with a proper one. The village man received the correct payment. That night, when Mira told her father what had happened, Kavan nodded slowly. "You protected more than one man," he said. "I protected his oil." "No," Kavan said. "You protected trust. Oil is used once. Trust is used every day." By then, Kavan's hair had gone the color of ash, and his knees hurt when he climbed the mound. He still inspected drains, but younger workers did the heavy lifting. Mira sometimes walked beside him in the evenings, listening as he described things most people ignored. He showed her how a street corner should be curved just enough to let cartwheels pass without striking the wall. He showed her where flood silt had been trapped in an old drain and how that single blockage had once drowned 3 courtyards. He showed her wells that had been rebuilt higher as street levels rose over generations. In Mohenjo-daro, the past was not beneath the city in a neat layer. It was inside the city, under floors, behind walls, reused, repaired, and built over. "People think planning happens before a city is born," he told her. "But planning is what keeps a city from dying." Mira remembered that. The trouble began with the river moving away. Not all at once. Rivers rarely announce betrayal. First, a landing place became too shallow for larger boats. Then a channel that had carried trade during her childhood became a strip of reeds and mud. Boatmen argued about new routes. Farmers argued about fields that were too wet one season and too dry the next. Wells in certain neighborhoods tasted different. Floods still came, but not always where people expected them. The river that had once seemed like a dangerous neighbor now seemed like a restless god packing its belongings. At the same time, caravans from the west became less predictable. Merchants who once brought stories from far cities now brought rumors of disorder, drought, conflict, and changing kings beyond the mountains and sea. Some said the western cities no longer desired the same goods. Some said roads were unsafe. Some said ships waited longer in foreign ports. Some said nothing at all. which frightened Mira more than bad news. The marketplace changed slowly. Fewer rare stones appeared. Copper grew more expensive. Shell ornaments from the coast still came, but not in the same abundance. Some bead makers left for smaller settlements closer to new trade paths. A few houses in Mira's district stood empty for months, their drains clogged with dust instead of water. Yet the city did not collapse in a single season. Children still played with clay carts. Women still drew water from wells. Men still repaired walls. Potters still painted black designs on red vessels. Priests, elders, merchants, workers, mothers, and apprentices still moved through the city, as if routine itself could hold back history. One evening, Mira visited Suri, the old seal carver. His eyesight had weakened, but his fingers still knew the memory of animals. On his table lay unfinished seals. The signs above the animals seemed smaller than ever, like speech shrinking into silence. "Do you still make many?" Mira asked. "Fewer," he said. "Why?" "Fewer bundles need marks for far journeys." He lifted a seal carved with the great humped bull. Even unfinished, the animal looked powerful. Its head lowered, its dewlap heavy, its body full of controlled strength. "When I was young," Suri said, "a seal felt like a voice traveling ahead of its owner. Now sometimes it feels like a voice calling into fog." Mira looked at the signs. "Do you think people will always know what they mean?" Suri smiled sadly. "People forget faster than clay breaks." That sentence stayed with her for years. As the city's confidence thinned, arguments grew louder. Some wanted to build higher platforms against floods. Others wanted to invest in new wells. Some wanted to send more traders east. Others wanted to abandon certain low neighborhoods and concentrate families on safer ground. The elders met often, but decisions came slowly. Mohenjo-daro had long been strong because its systems were shared, but shared systems required shared belief. When people began to doubt that tomorrow would resemble yesterday, every public decision became personal. Mira was invited to one meeting because of her work with weights and storage records. She sat at the edge of a large room while older men debated grain movement. The city needed to decide how much grain to store on higher ground and how much to release for trade. A merchant argued that holding too much grain would weaken trade relationships. A farmer argued that releasing too much would leave the city hungry if the next flood failed. A builder argued that storage buildings needed repair before more grain was placed inside. A boatman said the old river landing could not handle the same traffic anymore. Mira listened until the room exhausted itself. Then she spoke. "A false weight is not dangerous because it is large," she said. "It is dangerous because it changes what people expect from each other. Right now, the river has become a false weight. Trade has become a false weight. Rain has become a false weight. If we pretend the old balance still holds, we will measure everything badly." The room turned toward her. "What do you propose?" an elder asked. "Separate what must survive from what merely makes us proud," Mira said. "Clean water must survive. Grain must survive. Drainage must survive. Roads to nearby fields must survive. Tools must survive. Knowledge must survive. Long-distance luxuries can wait." The merchant bristled at the word luxuries, but several elders nodded. The decision that followed did not save the city forever, but it helped that season. Grain was moved. Storehouses were repaired. Certain drains were cleared before decorative work continued elsewhere. A new landing path was tested. Some families from vulnerable lanes moved temporarily to safer blocks. For the first time, Mira understood the burden of planning under decline. It was easier to design a city when everyone believed it would grow. It was harder, and perhaps more noble, to protect a city when growth could no longer be assumed. Years later, after Kavan died, Mira inherited his measuring cord, his drain tools, and a small brick he had kept from his father's kiln. The brick was ordinary except for its proportions, 1:2:4. She held it in both hands after the funeral and felt that she was holding not an object but a philosophy. Her father had left no inscription. No statue would carry his face. But drains still carried water because he had corrected their slope. Houses still stood because his bricks had aligned. Children still crossed dry lanes after rain because he had cleared channels no one praised. Mira placed the brick in a niche near the courtyard well. "Is it sacred?" her son asked. "No," she said. "It is useful. That is better." Her son's name was Aaron. He belonged to a generation that did not fully trust the old city. To him, Mohenjo-daro was impressive but heavy, full of repairs, rules, memories, and old arguments. He listened eagerly to travelers who spoke of smaller settlements where land was easier, where families could farm without depending on complex drains and crowded lanes, where the future might be built with fewer bricks and fewer obligations. Mira feared this restlessness, then slowly came to respect it. A city was a promise, but a promise could become a chain if the conditions that made it wise disappeared. One morning, Aaron told her he wanted to leave with a group heading east. Mira did not shout. She was older by then, with silver in her hair and hands hardened by decades of handling weights. "What do you seek?" she asked. "Land that does not remember so much," he said. The answer wounded her because she understood it. Before he left, she gave him 3 things: a standard weight, a small seal Suri had carved long ago, and Kavan's brick. Aaron tried to refuse the brick. "It is too heavy." "That is why you should carry it," Mira said. He laughed, thinking she meant strength. She meant memory. "Build what you must," she told him. "But do not build carelessly. A house can be careless. A camp can be careless for a few nights. A city cannot. The moment people depend on one another's water, walls, roads, food, and measures, carelessness becomes violence." Aaron left at dawn. Mira watched him disappear beyond the edge of the city, past the kills, past the fields, toward a future no planner could draw. She wondered whether he would build with baked brick or mud, whether he would remember the slope of drains, whether he would teach his children the meaning of a fair weight. She wondered whether civilization was a place or a habit. Perhaps the Indus world would not truly vanish if its habits traveled inside people. Measurement, cleanliness, craft, restraint, adaptation, and the quiet belief that daily life deserved order. In her final years, Mohenjo-daro became both familiar and strange to her. Some neighborhoods remained lively, while others decayed. Certain wells still gave good water. Some drains still worked perfectly. Children still ran through lanes, but fewer knew why one street was higher than another or why old bricks beneath their feet belonged to earlier versions of the city. The Great Bath still held its silence. The raised mound still watched the plain. The seals became fewer. The script grew rarer. The city was not dead, but it was becoming less itself. One night, after a rare rain, Mira walked alone through a lane her father had once maintained. Water moved cleanly along the drain. She smiled in the dark. The system still worked there. No singer would praise it. No king would claim it. No inscription would explain it. But water flowed away from homes, and because of that, children would wake dry. That was enough. When modern archaeologists uncovered Mohenjo-daro, they did not find Mira's name. They did not find Kavan's name, Ryan's name, Lali's name, Suri's name, or Aaron's name. They found bricks, drains, wells, platforms, streets, seals, weights, beads, pottery, bones, tools, and silence. But silence is not emptiness. Sometimes silence is what remains when a civilization refuses to reduce itself to kings. The Indus cities challenge the modern imagination because they do not tell their story in the usual ancient way. Egypt gives us pyramids and pharaohs. Mesopotamia gives us kings, wars, and written laws. The Indus gives us a bathroom in a private house, a covered drain under a street, a carefully measured brick, a standard weight, a seal with unread signs, and a city plan that seems to say, greatness is not always loud. For an American audience, that may be the most surprising lesson of all. We often recognize civilization by skyline. The tallest tower, the biggest monument, the bridge, the stadium, the glowing downtown scene from an airplane window. The Indus asks us to look lower. Look at the curb after rain. Look at the sewer cover. Look at the clean water coming from a faucet. Look at the building code that keeps a wall from falling, the street grid that lets fire crews arrive, the inspection hatch no tourist photographs, the standardized bolt, pipe, meter, and brick. The hidden systems are not background. They are the city. Mohenjo-daro was not perfect. No ancient city was. It had inequality, labor burdens, environmental risks, disease, conflict, uncertainty, and eventual decline. But its urban planning reveals a mindset astonishingly mature for its age. Its builders understood that water must be managed, waste must be removed, materials must be standardized, streets must be organized, trade must be measured, and households must be integrated into public systems. They built not only for display but for use. They created a civic world where the ordinary needs of daily life received extraordinary attention. And so the story continues, not because Mohenjo-daro survived unchanged, but because its questions never died. How should humans live together? Who gets clean water? Who maintains the drain? Who checks the weight? Who repairs the wall before it collapses? Who remembers that a city is more than buildings? Long after Mira's bones returned to dust, long after Aaron's descendants forgot the exact shape of the old streets, long after the river changed its course and the seals lost their readers, those questions remained. They crossed time more successfully than any caravan. They arrived in every city that ever struggled with flood, waste, crowding, trade, fairness, and memory. They arrive still every time a planner draws a line on a map and every time a neighborhood asks whether public systems serve everyone or only the powerful. The Indus people may not speak to us in deciphered sentences, but their cities still ask us to listen. Their drains say that cleanliness was planned. Their wells say that water was local and essential. Their bricks say that standards mattered. Their streets say that movement was organized. Their weights say that fairness required agreement. Their seals say that identity traveled through trade. Their silence says that history is not always written by those who lived it. Sometimes it is reconstructed by those patient enough to read mud, brick, and absence. And if we return one last time to that dawn in Mohenjo-daro, before decline, before forgetting, before archaeology, we can see Kavan as a boy again, standing barefoot in a lane washed clean by morning water. Cart passes. A woman draws from a well. A bead maker opens her workshop. A seal carver bends over stone. A planner checks the slope of a drain. The city breathes. Nothing about the scene looks like a miracle to the people inside it. That is the nature of good planning. When it works, life feels ordinary. But from 4,000 years away, the ordinary becomes astonishing.